I swirl the last sip of coffee in my mug, watching the city through my office window. Morning sunlight spills across my desk, catching on the gold trim of the fountain pen I bought the day I signed my first $1 million contract. My heels are off, tucked neatly under my chair. I always kick them off before my first meeting. My phone buzzes. At first, I think it's one of my clients, but when I glance at the screen, my heart gives that old, familiar twist. Ethan. My brother. Hey, we need to talk. Mom says you should help us out. It's about money. I laugh under my breath, a short, sharp sound that echoes too loudly in the quiet office. My assistant glances in, concerned, but I wave her off. I'm fine. At least, I am now. I lean back, silk blouse cool against my skin, and stare at the message again. The words blur for a moment, not because of tears. I cried all of those years ago, but because of memory. I can still hear it, as clearly as if they were standing in this room right now. My parents, voices firm, telling Ethan, "Don't worry, we'll make your sister pay everything." And back then, I did pay, but not in the way they expected. I set my phone down slowly, a smile tugging at my lips. If they think I'm the same girl who walked out of that house with nothing but a suitcase, they're about to learn just how wrong they are. I was 21 the night everything changed. Our kitchen smelled like burnt coffee and last night's arguments, the air so thick with tension I could barely breathe. Dad sat at the head of the table, arms crossed, face set in stone. Mom stood by the sink, wiping a dish that had been clean for 5 minutes. Ethan lounged back in his chair, spinning a pen between his fingers, looking entirely too relaxed for what was happening. "We've decided," Dad said, voice heavy with finality. "Ethan's focusing on grad school. He doesn't need the stress of bills and rent right now. And I do." My voice cracked despite my best effort to sound calm. Mom finally turned, giving me that look, the one that said I was being dramatic. "Sweetheart, you're better with money. You always have been. You can pick up a little extra work. You'll figure it out." Ethan smirked, not even trying to hide it. "Yeah, you're good at this stuff. It's not a big deal." Not a big deal. My stomach turned. My hands, resting on the table, curled into fists. Dad's words landed like a gavel. "Don't worry, son. We'll make your sister pay everything." There it was. Final. Decided. No one asked me if I could afford it. If I wanted to. If it was fair. I felt something snap inside me. Something small, but important, like the thread holding me to this house. After dinner, I went upstairs, shut my door, and sat on the edge of my bed until the walls stopped spinning. My grandmother's bracelet sat on my nightstand, delicate silver with a tiny charm shaped like a compass. She'd told me once, "You can't choose where you're born, darling, but you can choose where you go." That night, I chose. The next morning, I packed 2 suitcases, one for clothes, one for my sketchbooks and laptop. No goodbyes. No long explanations. Just a note on the kitchen counter. If I'm going to pay for everything, it's going to be my life, not yours. I walked out with $50 in my wallet and a determination so sharp it cut through the fear rising in my chest. For the first time, the world felt terrifying and completely mine. The first few months felt like living underwater. I slept on a friend's couch, worked 2 part-time jobs, waitressing during the day and cleaning offices at night, and still had nights where I counted quarters to buy instant noodles. But every time I felt like calling home, swallowing my pride, and asking for help, I looked at the compass bracelet on my wrist. "Choose where you go," my grandmother's voice would whisper in my memory. I started taking online design classes late at night, sitting cross-legged on that lumpy couch, laptop balanced on my knees. I'd always loved drawing, but this time, I treated it like survival. Within 6 months, I had a small portfolio and a new determination. I was going to turn this into something real. Then came Ruth. She was the creative director at a small marketing firm where I'd landed a junior assistant gig. Ruth was in her 50s, sharp-eyed but kind, the kind of woman who could spot potential before you did. "You've got talent, kid," She told me one late evening as we stayed after hours working on a client pitch. But talent's cheap without grit. You've got grit, I can see it. Use it. Those words lit something inside me. I said yes to every opportunity. Extra projects, freelance gigs, anything that would sharpen my skills. I worked weekends, skipped parties, lived on caffeine and stubbornness. The first time I saw one of my designs on a billboard, I stood across the street for nearly an hour, grinning like an idiot. It wasn't just an ad. It was proof. Within 3 years, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. I moved into my own apartment, bought real furniture, and replaced my cheap secondhand plates with ones that actually matched. And yet, I didn't tell my family. When Mom would call, asking how things were going, I kept my answers vague. I'm doing okay, I'd say, sitting in my sleek new office. I never sent photos, never bragged. Let them think I was scraping by. Because part of me wanted them to see me the way they'd always seen me, so that one day, when the time was right, the reveal would hit twice as hard. By the time I turned 27, I had my own design studio. I'd built a team, landed national clients, and paid off every cent of debt I'd ever had. My savings account looked like something out of a dream. But every night, when I took off my jewelry and set it on my dresser, my fingers lingered on that bracelet. It reminded me where I started and why I never went back. When Ethan texted me again a week later, this time adding, "We're coming to see you, it's serious," I didn't stop him. I told my assistant to clear my afternoon and had my driver pick them up from the airport. Yes, my driver. If we were going to do this, we were going to do it right. I stood in the lobby of my studio as they arrived, glass doors reflecting their surprised faces. Ethan looked the same, slightly smug, slightly tired, but Mom and Dad looked older than I remembered. Worn down. Wow, Ethan said, eyes scanning the polished concrete floors, the gallery wall of framed campaigns my agency had produced. This is fancy. You work here? I smiled politely. I own it. He blinked, clearly thinking I was joking. Wait, what? This is Walker Creative, I said, gesturing around. My company. I started it 4 years ago. Mom's lips parted, but no words came. Dad stared at the wall where my team photo hung, my name under the title founder and creative director. I led them upstairs to my office, floor-to-ceiling windows, a walnut desk, fresh flowers in a crystal vase. The view of the city stretched out behind me like a painting. Ethan dropped into one of the leather chairs. You've been busy. That's one way to put it. I took my seat behind the desk, folding my hands. So, you said you needed help. Mom finally found her voice. Sweetheart, your father's retirement fund didn't stretch as far as we thought. Ethan's loans are piling up. We just assumed that I'd pay for everything. I finished for her, my tone calm but sharp. Silence fell like a stone between us. I leaned back, letting the moment breathe, watching them take in the room, the awards on the shelf, the art on the wall, the photos from conferences in New York and LA. I did pay, I said finally. I paid in sleepless nights, in ramen noodles, in scraping by when you left me to figure it out alone. And you know what? It worked. I built all of this. I gestured around, my voice steady now, almost gentle. Without your money, without your approval, without a single ounce of help from any of you. Ethan swallowed hard. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair. You always were stubborn, Dad said, almost to himself. Not stubborn, I corrected. Determined. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the distant hum of the city outside. Then I stood and walked to the cabinet behind my desk, pulling out a sleek black folder. I slid it across the desk toward them. Inside were documents, projections, contracts, proof of the company's value. Numbers that spoke louder than anything I could have said. Ethan's eyes widened. You're worth this much? Yes. And you never told us? Mom's voice cracked. I looked her straight in the eye. You never asked. The room stayed quiet as they processed what they were seeing, the weight of years pressing down on all of us. Finally, I smiled, not cruelly, but with the calm of someone who had nothing left to prove. So, I said softly. Let's talk about what happens next. I let the silence stretch until Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his chair. You came here expecting a handout, I said finally. And maybe you'll get one. But things don't go back to the way they were. Not this time. Mom looked startled. We didn't mean. You did, I said gently, but with steel under my words. You meant it the day you told Ethan not to worry, because you'd make me pay for everything. And I did. I paid with every decision that brought me here. But if you want my help now, you're going to do it on my terms. Ethan leaned forward, suddenly interested. Okay, what terms? I took a slow breath, then began. First, Ethan, you get a job. A real one. I don't care if it's entry-level. I don't care if it bruises your ego. You start paying your own bills by the end of this month. No more free ride. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. Second, I turned to Mom and Dad. You stop treating me like the family's emergency credit card. You want a relationship with me? It can't be built on guilt or expectation. You ask, respectfully. You accept no for an answer, if that's what you get. Dad looked down at his hands, the weight of my words sinking in. And finally, I said, softening just slightly, we stop pretending the past didn't happen. If we're going to move forward, we need honesty. That means admitting it hurt me, and choosing to do better. For a moment, no one said anything. Then Mom reached for the folder on the table, sliding it back toward me. We were wrong, she said quietly. About everything. We thought we were helping Ethan. We didn't realize what we were taking from you. Her voice cracked, and for the first time in years, I believed her. I'm not trying to punish you, I said, my tone softening. I need to know you see me now. Not the girl you expected to carry everyone's weight, but the woman who built her own life. Ethan ran a hand over his face and exhaled. I'll get a job, whatever it takes. I nodded. Good. Because if I do help, it's not going to be charity. It's going to be an investment in you, in all of us. And I expect returns. Not money. Growth. They all nodded, a little stunned, but I could feel something shifting in the room. This was the first time we were speaking like equals. I stood, extending my hand across the table. We have a deal? Mom's fingers closed around mine. Deal. And just like that, the balance of power tipped, not cruelly, not vindicatively, but firmly. For the first time, I wasn't the one paying for everything. They left that evening quieter than they'd arrived. For the first time, I didn't feel small when the door closed behind them. I felt steady. 2 weeks later, I got a photo from Ethan. He was standing outside a coffee shop, wearing an apron, grinning sheepishly. First day. Not glamorous, but it's mine. I smiled so hard my cheeks ached. A few days after that, Mom called, not to ask for money, but to tell me she'd started volunteering at a local shelter. It feels good, she admitted, to do something for someone else for once. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. That night, after everyone had gone home and my office was quiet, I pulled open the top drawer of my desk and took out my grandmother's bracelet. The tiny silver compass caught the light, glinting like a star. I slipped it onto my wrist and let my fingers rest against it, feeling the weight of it. The weight of every choice that brought me here. I thought about the girl I used to be, sitting on that bed with her hands shaking, wondering how she'd ever survive on her own. I wished I could tell her, you won't just survive. You'll build something so strong it will carry you for the rest of your life. I walked over to the window, looking out at the city below. The lights like scattered diamonds, the hum of traffic soft and far away. My reflection looked back at me in the glass, older, sharper, but still me. They told my brother not to worry, I said softly, almost smiling, because they'd make me pay for everything. I let out a breath, steady and sure. And I did. Every penny, every tear, every hour I worked until my hands hurt. But I paid it for me, not for them. And now I own every piece of my life. I turned off the lights, the city still shining behind me, and walked out, leaving the office and maybe, at last, the past.